Yes, Cookie, I know you're worried about your home state senator, Mitch McConnell, but he'll be unfrozen and ruining the lives of Americans very soon. Oh, hey everybody, welcome to JL's Book Club, where we don't talk about Fight Club because I didn't read Fight Club. Before we get to this month's books, that's right, plural, 2 books, double the book review, same price. We have a beverage of the month, and I found this in my fridge. It's not mine, it belongs to some interloper who lives here as well. It's called Recess, and I guess this flavor is mood, because now things like mood can be a flavor. It's like, this is the basic bitch equivalent of like Axe body sprays. It's like, I'm drinking mood. Well, this one is magnesium and adaptogen infused sparkling water. Wow, adaptogen. How do you get through a day without a good dose of adaptogen? Whatever the fuck adaptogen is. But maybe I could use it because it says it's calm, cool, and collected. And those are 3 things that I am not. I am angry, hot, and a hot mess. Okay. Anyway, there's your beverage of the month. And if you're thinking, JL, do something with your hair, here's what you guys have to understand. My hair is in between phases right now. I'm at that moment where I go, do I go another 2 to 3 weeks of awkward hair and then let it grow and then I can manage it? Or do I go get another buzz cut? But if you mock my hair at this phase, remember, I'm half black, so it's technically ethnic hair, and don't touch my hair, okay? So, this month we have 2 books. One is a reread, and one is a nepotism pick. And if you pay attention to these reviews, you know what they are from last month. Cookie, please, we're doing a book review. No ass and puss eating. Thank you. We're civilized here. Appreciate you. Anyway, guys, before I was so rudely interrupted, the first book is the reread. American Prometheus, or as it should be called, American Promiscuous, because he was getting it, J Robert Oppenheimer. He's the father of the atomic bomb, though they never got married, so the atomic bomb was a bastard. And it won the Pulitzer Prize in 2005. It's written by Kai Bird. I think I'm pronouncing it. It might be K Bird, but I think it's Kai Bird. What are you, a surfer from Hawaii, bro? And Martin J. Sherwin. Now, this is a book I read in 2007 when I was still at the Bronx DA's office putting away Latinos for a living. And I, not too many though. Like, I feel like by being a mediocre prosecutor, I felt like I was kind of being woke in a weird way. But I read this book and I found it to be kind of a slog. Like, it's super dense. The writing is super small. It's probably, even though it's fewer pages, it might be a longer book than last month's Democratic Justice, the new biography about Justice Felix Frankfurter. And I just remember reading this and being like, oh, it wasn't bad, but it was a little dense and a little long and not super exciting. And then with the new movie Cookie, that's aggressive. I mean, Cookie is hearing about J Robert Oppenheimer and all the puss he was getting, and she's just like, I can't help myself. I am excited. This is vulgar. Cookie, if the people in this book review could see what you're doing right now, this is not a family... What I'm witnessing right now is not family friendly. But with Christopher Nolan's new movie, Oppenheimer, which I highly recommend, I said, let me get back into this book. And then I look kind of basic, like everybody else was like, I just bought the book, I'm smart. But as you guys know, it's a reread. So I'm not a basic bitch. I'm actually doubling up on all the basic bitches, which is exactly what J. Robert Oppenheimer was doing. A scientist in the streets and a freak in the sheets. And so I had like 70 pages to go before I saw the movie. I felt like that was a little bit of a failure on my part, but it was a tough read. Not tough, but long. It's a long read. And I gotta say, after revisiting it, I was unfair to it the first time. Perhaps I was happier with my life, young, a swinging cat around town. So these dense biographies were just like, man, you're a drag, Kai Bird. I'm out here trying to J. Robert Oppenheimer these New York streets. You know what you dig? But now that I'm just sort of like a messed up hair, middle-aged monster in New Jersey, I was like, I am getting into this deep story of one of our great scientists. Let me take off my glasses to read better because I'm old and deteriorating quickly. It's an excellent book. It's an excellent biography. If the movie intrigues you, the book the book was a great background to have for the movie, because Christopher Nolan doesn't waste any, like he's not trying to give you all, like, it's all there, but like he's condensing what could have been, a 10 episode miniseries into a 3-hour movie. But yeah, actually, American Prometheus, after revisiting it, I give it a thumbs up. So if you like Oppenheimer the movie, or want background material after seeing it, or are one of these broke bitches who can't sign up for my $1 Patreon on Making Podcasts Great Again, and can't go see the movie in IMAX, maybe getting like an ebook or something will do the trick for you. So American Prometheus, our first reread and a recommend. Now, next book up, it's the nepotism portion of the show. The 272 by Rachel L. Swarns. Now, Rachel L. Swarns is my sister-in-law. So, obviously this review is going to be super nice. No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't do that. If I wasn't going to give it a legitimate good review, I'd just be like, I forgot to review it. Oh well, it's in the past now. No, it's, and also I have a signed copy, because I bought a bunch of copies, and one of them at the Strand was signed. So how about that? Jealous? I bet. Though I think I could have just bought a regular copy and had her signed it when I just visited their house and said, can you sign this for me? But I'm not trying to be better than anybody else or use my proximity to power. But this is a book about, well, the subtitle, the families who were enslaved and sold to build the American Catholic Church. And in addition to impugning the Catholic Church, of which I am a member, not too hardcore, Opus Dei, it's also centered around Georgetown University. My sister-in-law wrote an article for the New York Times almost 7 years ago about this sale of slaves to help get Georgetown University out of bankruptcy, or out of financial difficulty, I should say. And then that spawned a series of major Catholic colleges and supported the church during a very down time in its history. And now, of course, with many things, there's a reckoning, a racial reckoning regarding this. But the book, which I was looking forward to for a while, was obviously a long, arduous process of research and writing. But I enjoyed the book immensely. She wrote a previous book on Michelle Obama's ancestry called American Tapestry. That I would also recommend highly. I know I don't get any cut of this, people. I don't get any cut. But American Tapestry, I thought, was really... This is more an exposing of like the foundations of an institution. So in a way, it's like, this is like the sad story, if you will, that we all know generally, but it's kind of a specific story that shows, hey, two major institutions in this country, the Catholic Church, which has had its problems, R.I.P. Sinead O'Connor, and major universities. Georgetown University, a prominent school. The foremost book critic in America went to law school there. A lot of people of renown have gone there. Whereas American Tapestry was almost, if you could have a book that's feel-good involving slavery, I know that sounds weird, but it shows the reason I loved that book so much when I read it. And this was my sister-in-law's first book, American Tapestry, so when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to read it. It's my sister-in-law. But then I was like, her gift, if I can call it that, as a writer, and it's present in the 272 also, is like kind of the emotion, the feeling of like connection and sadness that the people must have felt. She really evokes that kind of sensitivity in her historical subjects. Now, American Tapestry was basically, it takes you from Michelle Obama all the way to slavery. It connects her lineage all the way to slavery, and what you see in that, and it's similar for many families, obviously, both formerly of enslaved people and not, is that the amount of luck and hard work that it took to get from enslaved to First Lady of America was this incredible, like, it took some hustling, it took some hard work, it took entrepreneurship, it took all these things, and you see it through each generation until you get to the First Lady, and you realize how, almost like a house of cards in a way, it is, because if one thing, except it was real and substantive, I don't mean to suggest that it was fake or flimsy, but like if any one link in that chain has anything less than an above average or extraordinary journey, Michelle Obama may not be here, may not be the First Lady. So that book was, you know, if you're one of the people who ordered or read the 272, or if you're going to get it, American Tapestry is also a fantastic book, and I think it was New York Times 100 notable books of the year it came out. So don't take my word for it, although you should. Now, the 272 was also reviewed in the New York Times by David Blight, who wrote a Pulitzer Prize-winning biography about Frederick Douglass a few years ago. I received it as a Christmas gift. I read it. Unlike my reviews of American Prometheus and Democratic Justice, that was a long encyclopedic book that felt like an encyclopedic book to me. It won the Pulitzer, but that felt... By the end of that book, I was like, well, I'm glad I read it. I've learned a lot about Frederick Douglass, like how often he took shits and what his favorite snack was in his 50s. I'm exaggerating, but it felt like that was like, okay, maybe I need to know a little less. Maybe I didn't need 700 dense pages of Frederick Douglass, as sacrilegious as is to an iconic American figure, but you get my point. But David Blight wrote a review of the 272 and was largely complimentary. He had a couple of critiques, which, to be honest, I sort of found agreeable. The main one, and I talked to Rachel about this, I have that inside connection. There's no family tree. That's a small thing, but when you're reading a book like this, I think for the paperback edition, they may include a family tree. And Rachel even said it never, she was so deep in the research and the writing, it never even occurred to her to be like, yeah, let's get a family tree in there. And now it's sort of an obvious thing to her. Because you have some names that are repeated, so you kind of go like, this is the grandson? Okay, this is the grandson. That's one of my only critiques of the book. But my mom, Rachel's mother-in-law, read the review. And I'm going to give you roughly a quote of what she said to me about it. She goes, yeah, I read that guy's review, and it was mostly positive, but he had some critiques. And then I look at the bottom of the review, and he's written a book called Yale and Slavery. So fuck him. And I thought, that's a good mother-in-law. That's a ride-or-die mother-in-law. So I wouldn't go that far to critique David Blight, and it was a really strong review, and delivered all the like very hot positive quotes that you want from somebody of that stature describing your book. The family tree, though, I actually looked a couple times. I was like, is there a family tree? That's less a critique. That's not a critique of the writing or of the research. That's more a critique of the editing and like something that just would have been very helpful. So I enjoyed the book. It's a quick read. Relatively quick read. Not that you want to speed read it. You want to read it with the proper level of deference and respect. But here's just a quick passage that stuck with me. It's about midway through the book because this is like you've gotten the background on the enslaved people and their lineage, and now we're at the chapter that involves when they finally pull the trigger and decide to sell these 272 people. So, Harry, now an old man and the patriarch of the family, was spared. He's not getting sold. But it was the bitterest of blessings. He had done all he could to keep his family safe. He had declined to resist his ancestors and kinfolk. He had declined to resist as his ancestors and kinfolk had. He had worked faithfully for the Jesuits for decades, hidden the church's wealth during the War of 1812, and secured a pledge that his family would never be sold. He had raised his children and watched his grandchildren grow, buoyed by that promise and the belief that they would all remain together. but now he was forced to endure the unbearable, the disintegration of his entire family. In June, his oldest son had been stolen from him. Now 2 of his daughters, Annie and Bibiana, and his grandchildren were being taken, torn from their homes, and marched away from St. Inigo's, all of them victims of the mundane brutality of American slavery. I think that encapsulates the book in one paragraph, because that's what you sort of, from my sister-in-law's writing, that's sort of what I felt from from American Tapestry, and even more from this one, is the raw, like you're presented with, these aren't numbers, these aren't historical pieces of data, these were people, and this is one story in a story of millions of, one day, even somebody, during the War of 1812, this man hid the wealth of Georgetown, or of the church, I forget which, and was like promised after that, like because the British were looting and everything, so he kind of saw that as an opportunity to be like, hey, this might be good for me long term, and they promised not to sell his family. And in an era of this much just torture and familial destruction, that's as good as you can get. And it wasn't worth anything at the end. And he had to get to his days as an old man to see this all come undone. So for all that tenuous security he may have felt, he reaches towards the end of his life and it's like, nope, now it's all gone. That was all false security, and enjoy your last days knowing that your family has been sent to Louisiana, which is known for its harsh treatment of slaves. As harsh as it was, they were known as some of the harshest. And I think you get that from so many stories in the book. You get that feeling, and that's what she writes so well, I think, is that feeling of personal torture and sadness, not just in this year. I would compare it to the way we think about slavery sometimes is like the way old movies portrayed World War II, like Patton. It's big aerial shots of troops marching and cannons going off. And then a book like this is more like that Saving Private Ryan opening scene, where it's like, oh no, you're going to feel each individual soldier's trauma on D-Day, not just, and there was a big clash, and then in the end, righteousness won. It's like, no, on an individual basis, war is gut-wrenching and terrifying, and that's what I think she conveys with this book. So, for many reasons, obviously I would say go get the 272 wherever you get your books. And if you've already read it and enjoyed it or liked it or appreciated it is maybe a better word, American Tapestry, recommend that. So that's been this week's, I always say that, this month's book reviews. Next month, because we're in the middle of a heat wave and Earth is quickly melting into a hellscape, with Joe Biden won't do anything, shut the fuck up. It's the Republicans, dummies. I've got 3 books. Ambitious August, we're calling it. 3 books. First book up, An Immense World, picked as a top 10 New York Times book of 2022. It comes out on paperback the end of August, so if I give you a positive review, you can save money and get a cheaper copy of the book if it gets the JL seal of approval. No guarantee, but we'll see. The New York Times liked it. Now it's time for me to weigh in. Also, the new release from Jeff Goodell. I read his previous book, The Water, singular, The Water Will Come, which was about coastal flooding, and an absolute nightmarish, devastating, interesting book. This one's called The Heat Will Kill You First. Oh good, I thought it was going to be The Water. Thanks for reassuring me, Jeff. This will be the next book this month. And the third book is a book I've had for a while. It was a 2006 top 10 New York Times book. The Omnivore's Dilemma. I read that, JL. You're going to love it. Easy. Enough with your comments. I'm reading it. I'll tell you what I think of it. Thank you. The Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan. So it's a big month of holy shit, what are we doing, Earth type books. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being a Patreon subscriber, or if you see this 9 months from now, thanks for nothing, you freeloader on YouTube. And that's it. So remember, books, they're like documentaries for smart people.